Have you noticed that once you start doing inner work, it's like all your emotions gang up at once? One day it's rage, the next day it's this heavy shame in your chest. Then anxiety hits, and you're scared you're never going to heal enough to feel normal again. If you've ever thought, I'm bouncing between anger, guilt, shame, and fear, and I have no idea where to start, this video is your emotional roadmap. Today I'm going to show you how these four big emotions actually belong to one journey in shadow work, so you can stop feeling broken and start feeling guided. Most people are taught that shadow work means digging up every painful memory and hoping something shifts. But in real life, your shadow usually doesn't show up as a neat theory, doesn't it? It shows up as emotional overreactions. The moment you snap at someone you love. The wave of shame after you set a boundary. The panic when you go to make a change and your body freezes. Anger, guilt, shame, and fear are not proof that you're failing, or your healing journey. They are some of the main ways your unconscious, your shadow, tries to get your attention. In this video, I'm going to help you understand how these four emotions stack together, how to recognize which one is leading in a trigger, and how to choose your next step in shadow work without getting lost in it all. Let's start with a picture. Imagine your emotional life like the ocean. On the surface, where the waves crash, we have anger. Underneath, in the middle depths, we have guilt and shame. And deeper still, down where it's darker and harder to see, we have fear. When a trigger happens in your life, maybe someone criticizes you, or a boundary is crossed, or you think about doing something brave, you might feel all of these at once. You snap in anger. Then the guilt and shame come in. Then the fear whispers, see, this is why we don't change. But usually, one emotion is leading. Anger is the part of you saying, this is not okay. Guilt and shame are the parts of you saying, I must be bad for feeling or doing this. Fear is the part saying, if we change, we might not be safe. Shadow work is not about getting rid of these parts. It's about recognizing who is speaking in the moment, what they are trying to protect, and learning how to bring them home instead of exiling or obeying them blindly. In the rest of this video, I'll walk you through each layer, and then I'll give you a simple 4-step practice so you know which layer to work with on any given day. Let's start with the surface, anger. When I say anger, I don't just mean screaming or punching a wall. I mean resentment, irritation, that tight jaw, the sarcastic comments, the passive-aggressive silence, all the ways your system says something here is not okay for me. In shadow work, anger is often a boundary alarm. It points to places where your needs were ignored, your no was overridden, or you learned very early that it was safer to swallow your truth than to speak it. So in a trigger, if the main felt sense is, I can't believe they did that, or this is so unfair, or I'm so sick of this, you're probably in the anger level. When anger is leading, your next step in shadow work is not to shame yourself for being too much. is to get curious. What boundary was crossed here? What need went unmet? Where did I learn that it was not safe to protect myself? In my shadow work for anger session, we go step by step through that process so you can meet the part of you that holds your anger, listen to it, and give it a healthier role. Anger is not your enemy. It is the guardian of your aliveness when it's integrated. Once you start working with anger, something interesting often happens. Memories come up, regrets, the times you did hurt people, the moments you weren't proud of how you reacted. And with those memories come guilt and shame. Guilt and shame are often lumped together, but in shadow work, it's really important to tell them apart. Guilt says, I did something that doesn't match my values. Shame says, I am the kind of person who is bad, unworthy, unlovable. Guilt, when it's healthy, can guide us toward repair and growth. It can help us say, I'm sorry, make amends, and choose different next time, or choose differently. Shame tends to freeze us. It drives hiding, self-attack, perfectionism, and a constant fear of being found out. So in a trigger, if the main feeling is, I'm a terrible partner, I'm such a bad parent, or if people really knew me, they would leave, you're probably in the shame layer. In shadow work, this is where we meet the part of you that decided long ago it was safer to believe I am the problem than to risk losing love. In my shadow work for guilt and shame session, we gently separate who you are from what you've done, and we start building a kinder inner voice that still honors accountability without collapsing your entire identity into a mistake. If guilt and shame are loud for you right now, that's your sign that this is the next layer of your journey. And then, underneath anger and underneath guilt and shame, we find fear. Fear can look like anxiety, overthinking, constant work case scenario planning, or that full body freeze right when you're about to do something new. Fear is not just terror of physical danger. It's fear of being seen, fear of judgment, fear of success, because success might mean more pressure, fear of failing again, fear of losing the people or the identity that you've built your life around. Often after we start shifting anger and shame, fear shows up with thoughts like, if I change, will my family still accept me? If I speak my truth, will I be abandoned? If I stop people pleasing, who am I? What if the new me isn't lovable? In shadow work, fear is usually the part trying to keep you safe, using the strategy it learned a long time ago. Don't move. Don't rock the boat. Stay small. Stay invisible. In my shadow work for fear session, we don't try to bully fear into silence. We practice walking with it. We learn to say, I hear you. I get why you're scared. And I'm still going to take this next gentle step. If your main experience right now is anxiety, overthinking, or that gripping fear when you go to make a change, this is the layer your shadow is inviting you to meet. Now I want to give you something practical you can use every single day. You don't have to guess which video or practice to use, you can follow this simple 4-step emotional roadmap. Step 1. Notice one trigger a day. At the end of the day, take out your journal or notes app and write down one moment where your reaction felt bigger than the situation. Maybe you snapped at a comment. Maybe you shut down in a conversation. Maybe you spiraled after seeing something on social media. Just one moment. Describe what happened in 1 or 2 sentences. Step 2. Name the leading emotion. Ask yourself, what was leading here? Anger, guilt, shame, or fear? Here's a quick way to tell. If it felt like, how dare they? Or, this is not okay, that's anger. If it felt like, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I ruin everything, that's shame, with guilt often close by. If it felt like, I'm not safe, this is going to end badly, or your body went into anxiety or freeze, that's fear. Step 3. Ask, what is this trying to protect? Anger might be protecting your boundaries or your sense of fairness. Guilt and shame might be trying to protect your belonging by making you the problem instead of risking losing other people. Fear might be trying to protect your safety and stability by stopping you from changing too fast. You don't have to agree with the strategy, you just have to see that each emotion is trying, in its own way, to keep you safe. Step 4. Choose your next session. Once you've named the leading emotion, you can choose which guided session to do that evening or that week. If anger was leading, go to the Shadow Work for Anger video and let that part of you speak in a contained, guided space. If guilt and shame were leading, go to the Shadow Work for Guilt and Shame session and meet the part of you that believes it doesn't deserve love. If fear was leading, go to the Shadow Work for Fear session and practice walking with fear instead of fighting or obeying it. This is how your shadow work stops being random and starts becoming a clear journey. I want you to hear this. You are not broken for feeling anger, guilt, shame, or even fear. These emotions aren't proof that you're failing at healing. They're proof that your nervous system and your shadow are trying very hard to protect you with the tools they learned a long time ago. Now you're learning new tools. Tools that let anger protect your boundaries without destroying your relationships. Tools that let guilt guide repair without collapsing into shame. Tools that let fear keep you aware without keeping you frozen. Here's what I'd love you to do next. First, pick one trigger from today and walk it through the 4 steps we just practiced. If this video resonated with you, please click like and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss another shadow session. Thank you so much for getting to the end and for putting yourself out there, for having courage to embrace your shadow.